Okay, rulers, settle down. Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to get singles for all your Force of Will and other trading card games, as well as these amazing patrons. Special thanks to guest lecturer member Vite Ramen. Thank you for your support. Class is in session.
Hey there, rulers. Welcome back to Deck Profiles with yours truly, Paul Reisman. And today, we're going to be taking a look at a couple of lists, actually. This is a little bit different than what we normally do here on the Deck Profiles, but I go to two locals, so that gives me an opportunity to test out one deck and then make changes. And today, we're going to be doing that a little bit with some of the newer rulers. A deck focusing on Belial and Beatrice, the first ruler I packed out of this set. So I was super excited to play with her, and I was really intrigued by her card design and the ways that she was going to be used in the format. And admittedly, she's not the greatest ruler. She's not like tier 1 status. I mean, I think we all know, if you've been looking at the whole set and you've looked at everything going on with those rulers, you know that there's definitely an upper crust. Beatrice isn't up there, but she's still fun, and she still has some unique things that she adds to this. I don't know if she's going to be competitive, though. So if you're a competitive player and you're looking at this competitive Beatrice, you're not going to get much out of here. Yeah, so we're just going to get right into the deck. So obviously, Belial is one of our main rulers here. He can Judgment for white and black. He can God's Art Pride to draw a card. If you would start your starting life, it would be at 2,000 instead of the normal 4,000. And then Resonator tokens that I generate, I mean, that's all kinds of tokens. It's not just his tokens. All tokens I have gain +2/+2 in Bane. And then if I played a God's Art and resolved it this turn, I get the Fallen effect, where I cannot lose the game and I prevent all damage done to me. So that's super nice. When he flips, I'm going to try and get him to flip. I think did it. So then Resonator tokens gain an additional +2/+2, so they're all together getting a +4/+4. They're still getting Bane, but now they get Drain, which might seem a little odd, but it actually does come into play a little bit. And then when he enters, you get 2 Fallen Angel tokens into the field, 400/400s. And then if he just retains the Fallen effect, as well as having the Flying keyword. And he's an 8/8 himself, which isn't bad, right? I mean, that's halfway decent for a ruler in this set, an 8/8. There's certainly stronger rulers than what we have in Belial, but, you know, we're not playing him for his attack and defense. We're playing him for his tokens and his God's Art effect, right? So then we're going on and moving on to Beatrice. Now, Beatrice is the null ruler, which means if you have null, at the end of your turn you draw a card. Similar judgment effect, very cheap judgment, except you're paying blue instead of white. If you would draw a starting hand, it's kind of like the anti-Mujdart. You're drawing 4 instead of 5, so just be aware of that. And my maximum hand size is now 6. Her God's Art is Greed. If you have no cards in your hand, draw 2 cards. So if you're at null, you get to draw 2 cards. You can still play the God's Art, you just won't draw cards. So just be aware of that. It can sometimes be relevant when you're in a pinch. And then we're going to move on to the Resonators of the list. So in my construction of this deck, my thought was, well, Beatrice is either going to go one of 2 ways. She's either going to go in this direction where you have to throw everything onto the field, or you have to have some way of dumping everything into the graveyard. So I said, okay, she has a ton of 1-drops like Electo. Electo theoretically is really good. You can remove 3 in the graveyard to just play it. It has natural Bane. And when you're at null, whenever you draw a card, your opponent has to banish a Resonator. If they don't, they discard. Seems pretty decent, and I have the promos. So I was like, hey, why not try this out? But I really, really liked Prideful Mermaid. This is a natural 8/8 when it hits the field. It also gains Flying and Barrier, all as long as you have 2,000 or less life. So this card seemed like an auto include in a deck that was focusing on white and blue rulers. This card is amazing. I kept this in the second version of the list. Just keep you aware of that. Of course, for Wall of Terror, what is probably one of the better cards in the whole set, according to some folks. You discard a card, you can gain something Barrier, and that's target entity. So that's literally anything on the field, a permanent, quote unquote. If you're at null, it gains +4/+4 barrier and bane. So I mean, that's just a little extra incentive to get to null, but it's really there for the barrier effect. Imaginary Dagon, discard, gain +4/+4, and if you're at null, you can get flying, and when this card deals damage, your opponent discards a card. This was really the other way I thought of trying to get down to null super quick. I also really like the design around Imaginary Dagon, just being able to pump himself up and swinging. It seemed pretty good, especially with Wall of Terror, he could gain barrier. So in my head, I'm like, this is a flying barrier swing for game, potentially. So that's the thing. Ignore this, there's not 4 Sigurd in the deck, there is 1. It's hilarious. I played Sigurd and Rhea, mostly because I wanted to try and get to... oh my gosh. I wanted to try and dump a Castle of Beatrice to protect my grave. I also wanted to have Castle of Belial, because in my experience of limited format, this card was amazing, so I wanted to play with this, and the best way to get that out, in my opinion, was playing Sigurd. And then I said, well, I'm already playing Sigurd, and so if I'm losing him at any point, I can just grab a Research Institute. And if it, worst comes to worst is in my hand, I literally can just have a free stone off of its effect. So, I mean, it's there, and then I thought my tokens are going to get super huge, so this thing's going to be pretty darn good. Yeah, so I mean, the deck was coming together, and we'll talk about why I'm making certain changes later. Prideful Rule, probably one of the best cards in the deck. Pop something if your life is at 2,000 or less. It costs 1 white. Pop something and make a token. Seems pretty good. This card was amazing, just being able to like pop one of your opponent's resonators and grab your own. This seems pretty good. I played Voice from the Void, probably one of the better Beatrice cards released, and one of the better blue cards that we have in the cluster right now. Being able to just draw 2 for 1 at instant speed is really good. Imagine if 4C didn't need another card printed to be good. Welcome to Voice from the Void. And cost 1 less, whatever. I also played Belial's Rule. In my head, I needed another board wipe, and this was a way of getting around my tokens, but oddly enough, I found myself with a lot of resonators on board that were not tokens. So this card was actually a little dead most of the time. And then I played 4 other cards. So I put the worst card in the game in the deck to just kind of act as a proxy. I don't remember what the other 4 were because I promptly deleted the deck. It wasn't good, guys. It just was not good. It didn't go very well. In the stone deck, I tweaked around with it. Even during locals, I was still tweaking it. You're playing dual rulers, so play 6H stone. Adiractys Memoria, you're going to be having a white, blue, and black stone almost all of the time because of Adiractys Memoria. And then 1 Dark Depth and 1 Heaven's Rift. And this card was... this deck was interesting. It felt a little slow, mostly because of things like Castle of Belial, and I actually opted against the Sigurd package. So I took all of this out, and after that, I created version 2, which you're going to see right now. So I'm still playing Belial and Beatrice, but instead of going more in Beatrice's direction, I said, okay, and shoutouts to Paul Clute for this, because he was amazing for suggesting this idea, and it worked out really well. Have Beatrice be a support. So your main ruler is going to be Belial, but when you go into Beatrice, you're going to have some additional things that you get to have, like Prideful Mermaid, Wall of Terror, some other things that you benefit. So Null is there to just benefit you when you're running low on cards, and it benefits you when you need to put a whole bunch of stuff on field or you have an empty hand at the end of your turn. That's kind of what I started using this ruler for specifically. And she had some utility when I needed to bounce stuff on the field. I was able to do that, and I judgmented her a couple of times at my locals in Ionia. So one of the biggest changes I made to the deck was putting in Flute. Flute acts as a really good as a really good mana dork, and there were times where the counters actually mattered as well. Putting a whole bunch of counters on Belial allowed me to play the extra copies from my hand, and then I could just blow up the field and leave my Belial unscathed, right? So this card was really, really, really good. I also slotted in Belial's Messenger. I had this in an initial build, but wasn't sure about it. Felt like I should be going more toward the Beatrice package, and I cut this, and I think that was a huge mistake. Playing this or Flute in turn 1, it feels really good, because you essentially get 2 resonators, a 3/5 with flying, and a 6/6 with flying and Bane. That's pretty darn good for a starter, in my opinion. Of course, I kept Prideful Mermaid because she's amazing, and Wall of Terror. This low cost to the ground sort of stuff was actually pretty relevant. And then I played Suya. Suya I thought was also a really good addition to this deck because it made my opponent lose advantage, and it gave me the ability to look at my opponent's hand and take stuff out of it should I have additionals in hand. One of the biggest things that I thought was really important about this, especially after I goldfished and did a lot of testing, was I realized that you need to have almost complete and utter copies of a card in as possible in your deck, because you're only drawing 4, and then if you're mulliganing a whole hand, you're going to be seeing only 20% of your deck as opposed to 25 in a normal build. So having 4 ofs of a lot of this stuff was really important. But now I want to talk about one of the win conditions of the deck. Choir of Fallen Angels. This card is amazing. On its own, it can create 3 Fallen Angel Resonator tokens, which is 18 damage off of 1 card. That's really, really fun. And it's got Quick Cast, and it's got Remnant, so you can play this on your opponent's turn and just benefit from them not making you use your open will. It also combines really well with Flute, allowing you to use her white will to make more angel tokens. Same with Prideful Rule, works really well with Flute because you can pay 2 less in order to play it if your life is 2,000 or less. It is, by the way. And then another one of the stars of the deck, I did not realize how good this card was going to be. The Road to the Sacred Queen. Resting my opponent's resonators as they came in, I could run right into them with my Fallen Angel tokens, and if they didn't die, the Bane would take care of them. So it was really great. I still played Voice from the Void, although I used this card differently. I actively used this as soon as I got it, because then I got more access to things like Prideful Mermaids, or Belial's Messengers, or more Flutes, Choirs of Angels, things like this. This card was super good for letting me draw into my cards, and I didn't find it detracting from the Null engine at all, at least in my experience. One card that I was a little hesitant about putting in the deck because I wasn't sure if I was going to need it, and I'm still feeling that way, is Belial's Hymn. This card's okay. It's the idea of it's a Sprint of the Beast Lady for your tokens, and then you generate a token so you have something left up in case your opponent wants to do some stuff. This card's okay, although I do side it out, and I'll talk about the side deck in just a second. And then last but not least, another Paul Clute recommendation, of course, the Last Secret Sword. So if you are in a place where you can just Last Secret Sword for game, you're going to be happy that you have this card. If you're in a situation where you need to dump your hand, you're also going to be glad you have this card, because it basically says turn on Null, deal 10 life to your opponent. Seems pretty good. If you're behind and you just need to squeak out the win, it's there for that. If you need to turn on Null for any particular reason, if you need to draw additional cards, this card is here for you as well. This card's actually pretty darn good, and having a couple in my hand actually ensured I won a couple of games. So don't sleep on this card, especially in Null decks. This card's really solid. Of course, I'm basically playing the same stone list, although I'm playing 2 Heaven's Rift instead of a Dark Depth and a Heaven's Rift. And then, I don't usually make side decks, but my locals in Ionia, you kind of need it. And I kind of went into this, how do I put this? Fearing Wolfgang. And I still lost to Wolfgang, so there's that. Of course, I'm playing Satan. If you have Fallen Angel Rulers, I think it makes sense to play Satan, although you don't have to. I think it's still pretty good, especially since these are both some weenies as far as J Rulers go. But then I side into Astema. Now, Astema is pretty darn good. It allows you to draw into several cards if you have it on your front side. You judgment for a white and a black, or a red and a black, excuse me. It has a ton of symbol skills on its flip side. Precision, flying, first strike, bane. Your opponent still cannot win the game, or you cannot win the game, and your opponent still cannot lose the game. But whenever you get rid of resonators, you get to do additional effects, which is pretty nice. And then entering, it destroys up to 2 J resonators your opponent controls, which can be relevant. And then it's a 12/12 to boot, which is pretty great. Asthma is really good because on its front side, you can use the God's Art to grab yourself an Inferno, which really hurts Wolfgang, at least in theory, right? Getting rid of all of their entities, all of their stuff, sets them back a lot. And I think Inferno is a good crackback card, especially if you have Asthma. You can do all 3 of those effects. It's really, really, really good. And then because I wanted some way to put resonators on board while also advancing my win condition, I put a 10/10 flyer on the field that, you know, pops resonators and additions and regalia, but no one's playing regalia at my locals, so I didn't really see that coming into play too much. But in my head, this card was actually really decent for that. It's one of our Marvel rares, and then I just make tokens for everything that I destroy. So it was a way to advance my own win condition while setting my opponent back a little bit. I also played Virgilius, or as most people just call him Virgil because that's a really long-winded name. Just being able to get rid of your Asthma and your Belial for Virgil is really good, and then you can just make Satan from there. But probably the most important card against Wolfgang, in my opinion, is the Witch of the Fallen Kingdom. Being able to have one of these, or 2, ideally 2, in your opening hand really shuts Wolfgang down and pushes him back a little bit. So if you have multiples of this in your board, you're going to be doing a lot of work. So this card is fantastic, and I love it. But guys, that's a really long deck profile, and frankly, if you like the longer deck profiles, let me know. I tried to explain my choices so that way you guys had a better idea in your head, and I tried to explain some of the things I would take out. Let me know if you like that, and I'm more than willing to do longer form deck profiles if that's something that you like, whenever I get on here anyway. Most of the time it's going to be Jer but you know, every once in a while I'm on. So if you like these longer form deck profiles from me, just let us know down in the comment section down below. Let us know what you think of the deck. Let us know what changes you would make. Let us know if you had other ideas that you might include in this deck. All of that can be done down in the comments. I'm looking forward to it, guys. Hit that subscribe and that bell, and join our Discord. It's all the way down in the description. I gotta get out of here though. So guys, catch you later, and as always, class is dismissed.